Early on, I put business logic exactly where many developers do, inside controllers. It felt efficient. A request comes in, you handle it, return a response, done. But that approach only works when the system is small. As soon as it grows, the problems start showing up, and they don't show up immediately. They show up later when everything is already connected. At first, everything seems fine. You add validation here, a rule there, database query inside the controller, all still works. But you're slowly turning one file into a coordination center for the entire application. And that's where maintainability starts breaking. Not because the logic is complex, but because nothing has a defined place anymore. This is how it usually happens. A discount rule gets added in a controller, calculation gets added in a model, and email gets triggered from a helper. Nothing feels wrong individually, but we are looking at this collectively. And collectively, you now have business rules scattered across the entire system. And when something breaks, you don't know where to look at first. If it breaks in the controller, you could get confused if you actually need to check the controller, or you gotta check the models, or you're checking the database triggers. Let's break it down into simple terms. Think of a restaurant. If the waiter starts cooking, and the chef starts handling payments, and the cashier starts preparing orders, the system still works technically, but coordination becomes chaos. The software is the same, everything is working well. The problem is not the work being done, it's who is responsible for it. Logically, chef has to cook, waiter has to collect orders, manager overseeing everything and ensuring it works. So just because it's working however way you put it doesn't mean it is efficient. So the real question becomes, where should business logic live? Well, the answer is not one specific pattern, it's clarity of responsibility. The controller should coordinate a request, not own the logic behind it. Once that boundary is clear, the system becomes predictable again. You have controller handling what? Handling requests, serving a response. You have database, persist on data, action service classes, execute business logic. You have your form request, validating the form data. The goal is not to remove complexity, the goal is to organize it, because both systems still contain the same business rules. One just hides them everywhere, the other makes them easy to find and reason about. It is easy to get the error when you have them separated, but then again, at some point, separating them becomes an issue. When you separate things too much, like you just feel everything you should just separate, you have a certain action to do, you just decide to take everything into actions, anything you just take into actions. That's not how it really works. You have to be optimistic about this, picking out a particular function, like a body of things that have to be done. Like the invitation system, you could have an action for generating the invitation. The action class will be used to get the email and every other thing you need to send the invitation. You use an action class, then you handle it. Coming now to accepting it, or when the person rejects, you could now bring in the controller. The controller comes in when the person clicks up the link in the email, gets makes the request, then the controller now processes it, calls that action, whichever one it is. If the user decided to reject, calls the action to reject. If the user decided to accept, calls the action to accept, rather than having the controller to do all the invitation, everything concerning the invitation in one place. If you do it that way, it will still work, but the boundary should be clear where things should be. The difference becomes critical at scale. The first 10 features feel easy either way. The first 100 expose every structural mistake. And the first 1,000 expose whether the system can actually survive change. When business logic has structure, debugging becomes predictable, testing becomes easier, changes become safer, and new developers can understand the system faster, not because it is simpler, but because it is organized. Suppose you have an action class for invitations, and then at some point the app breaks, and it is only when you added the invitation feature that the app broke at that point. So now you only have two things in mind. It is either it broke at where the user is accepting, or it is breaking where you created the invitation. So you already know the two places where it's possible to break. Majority of the time you know the exact one. So if you have everything organized and well structured, predictability becomes much easier. You could easily test. You create an action class, you just test it, then you integrate it into a controller so that when the request comes in, the controller calls whichever class that needs to resolve this, and then everything just goes easy and smooth. But then again, it's left to you to decide which one you want. Everything in the controller which will work, or separating concerns, making things easier as your application grows. Over time, I've learned that most architectural decisions are not about the frameworks themselves. They are about boundaries. Laravel is just the tool. The real risk is deciding where logic should live so the system can evolve without breaking itself. Next videos will go deeper into structure workflows, separating application layers, and scaling backend systems cleanly.